my husband and I were stuck at home. We were at an age where we didn't want to go out anywhere. So I had used up all of my good reference photos. I couldn't get together with my model that Caroline was talking about. So what could I paint that I would really enjoy? And water has been in my life all the time, and that was finally, after a lot of thinking, that was a natural decision to make. I grew up on Mobile Bay, just down the street from us, and my earliest memory of the water is when my brother built a little raft and waited for the tide, and then he just pushed me out to sea with it. I think he got one of those whippings when it was really not illegal to do so. But, and then living in Mobile, and then on the Gulf Coast, and then out of the country, we were always around water. I've snorkeled so many different places and learned to scuba dive. So we have been in some exotic, wonderful places way down deep under the water. And I can always, when I'm working on a painting, I can always feel it, sense it, think about it. But the thing was, when I started to, when I decided to go into painting seascapes, I had to learn how the water moves. And so I started studying. There was, excuse me, one book that I dog-eared, I guess. If you're interested in seascapes, an oil painter named E. John Robinson had some excellent videos, and his book, so you can go to that website. He's deceased now, but his son has continued his resources. That, to me, was the definitive work on learning how water moves, the energy of it, the colors, the changes of the day, everything about it. And then if you're into pastel, a few are, I know, it's Lana Ballot, and I had some excellent courses on painting the seascape in pastel. And of course, Jean Rosé Smith. She's does just dynamite close-ups of the sea. And this is the one I'm going to do today.
So this is a photo you took in where is?
Actually, I don't have many photos of the water. At the time we were traveling, I was doing portraits only, so my camera was always on the face. Regrettably, because we were in some great places for water, all along the California coast. Why didn't I get that then? I don't know. So now most of my photos are from pixabay.com. They are royalty free. You're free to use them, even on something that you're going to sell or publish or put on your website. The restriction on that is that I can't enter them into my competitions. So that's a drawback to me because I'm painting so many of them now. But until I can put together a trip, that's what I am. But Pixabay got some great photos. And the neat thing about the photos, a lot of them are in freeze frame, where the camera is such high resolution that you can see the droplets on the water. Really, really great. And this is one of them. So I'm just going to start with my base colors first. And I don't really be careful about this section or this part of the painting. I do move in different strokes. and I don't try to go slow. It doesn't have to be the exact color. I'm more interested in the value. But I do, for this, I go with the local colors as much as possible. This is Uart paper that's mounted on foam core.
What grit is it, Carolyn?
400. I use 400 except for if I'm doing a live model where you're limited to 3 hours. I'll use 800 grit because it's so smooth I can just do a few strokes. You don't have to, on these, with this 400 grit, I can build up so many layers. And this one is fairly rough. Sometimes I have a section I don't like, so use the foam brush, get rid of it, just brush it off, and it still has plenty of tooth to continue with. I've just done a very basic big shape outline. With the Seascapes, I don't draw any of the details in.
And what did you use to do your outline? Your rough sketch?
A charcoal, pastel pencil. I want to keep that. This is this neat little separation of water here, and it's just got a lot of character to it, so I'm gonna keep that in there. I have to always remind myself to make it dark enough, because I tend to go too light, and then I can't get the contrast in, so you have to go back over it and over it. This backwater, maybe too much. My favorite little tools is window foam insulation. It's a higher density than the pipe insulation, but it's what you would put around a window to eliminate the drafts. So and that's the difference it makes. It covers up the color of the paper without destroying the grid.
Carolyn, did you buy a set of blues?
What?
Did you buy a particular, like a marine set of blues, or just?
I did. I found, this part of my tray is just blues that I had accumulated over the years. They're different brands, lots of different brands, different softness. But when I really decided to go into this, I kept looking at, well, which famous artist that's doing seascapes, what is she using? And I found this artist in Australia, Tricia Taylor, and she had put together a seascape set of Unisons, and that's what I got. That's basically what's on this side.
What's your name, Tricia who?
Taylor,
Taylor.
T-R-I-C-I-A, I think it is. But also, so that's what I did. And then I bought this set of Richesons. I love this
Oh,
one.
they're nice.
It's called Turquoise Blue, Turquoise Blues. I love the texture of it, as well as the colors are so good. I bought this one before that, and it's not as useful to me, right, at least not right now. It's Blue Earth Pastels, and this is called the Turquoise set. Got this, I told my husband what I wanted, so he went out to the garage and he had it.
That's right, okay.
So before I started using that, for these big areas like this, I was using this part of my hand. And these colors kind of almost stain into your skin. These blues.
Yeah.
Is it okay to take a picture?
Hmm?
Is it okay to take a picture?
Sure, anytime, yeah.
Can you tell me about your what you're using right now? Is it soft, the pastels that you're using in there?
They're soft.
Okay.
They're not, I find that I'm not using the new pastels and the hard pastels as much anymore, hardly ever. Because, I go on lightly enough, and then using this, it doesn't destroy the grit.
Okay.
So the soft pastels are working.
Is there a particular brand that you like over other?
Oh, maybe not for this particular, not for the underpainting, but in general, yes. I love the new, the Unison,
Unison?
yes. And I really like these Jack Richeson. The texture of it is just really, really nice.
So you were saying this is just the underpainting part? This is the underpainting and you're gonna go back over it, okay.
All of this,
Hundreds of dollars.
I think the main thing to do about the seascapes is to think about how that water is moving. Where is it the thickest? Where is the light shining on it? Where is it the thinnest? So down here, that's at the same level as this, and it's very thick. That's the depth of the ocean. So you've got to make the viewer think that that's going way back under the wave. All of that's going back. And then this area, all in here, is thinner, but it's not the thinnest part. So the light is behind and it's shining through that water. In this photo, it makes it look almost white. It's a very light value. But you can't paint it that light and have it work. You've got to put things under it and over it. And then this part right here, I would think that it's thin, but it's not, because the water has come up and it's almost like that. So there's some thickness to it. And it depends upon where the sun is hitting it, whether it's going to be, how much light it's going to have on it. So there's an area as that wave comes over and it starts to fall that it's almost flat. It may not be a big area, but it's going to be flat. And then it starts making its cascade down. So wonderfully in this stop action photo, I can see all of these little things right here. That's where the water has already come up, it's hit this level, and it's starting down. And then in here is almost at this kind of angle. So it's not getting as much light. There'll be some shade on it. To make it believable, you have to get that shadow, that dark area behind it. The light parts where the sun is hitting, those you'll do at the very end. But in order to get this little jagged area right in here, I take a gray or, in this case, for some reason I've got this purple in here, and do little stutter steps going across. Almost like you're nervous. And it's coming out like that. Some of that'll be covered up later, but at least you've got the depth of the color in it. And of course, it doesn't have to be exactly like your photo because it's not a nose on a face. It can be in almost any place, but whatever you want for your composition. This area has gotten a little bit darker because there's more water there. And right in here, this looks, if you look closely, there's some water, that's two curls coming up. So the back curl has got a little bit of shadow in it. Okay, now I'm gonna go back with this funny color, grayish green, greenish gray. And it was all this in here. Won't stay like this. But it gets me started. And I may leave this, I haven't decided if I'll just go ahead with this. And the reason I'm doing this after I did that initial brush in, because the pastel falls down and it would have gotten it dirty.
So what you're saying is you did the darker value first, then you're doing this lighter value, because if that lighter dust would have gotten into the dark, it would have changed.
It pulls, up here, when I'm rubbing it in, the pastel falls.
Right.
And as it falls, it catches on some of that grit on the sandpaper.
Yeah.
And so it
It's
would
the
have
opposite.
had some dark areas in it,
Right.
yeah.
It's the opposite order.
Okay, and these that look so vivid, so dark, now they're pushing back. On this one, it has a lot of lace holes where the foam has separated from the water. I think I'm going to not put those in, so I'll have a lot of contrast between these two areas. It makes it stand out more. So might not. Okay, so that's the underpainting layer. And I want to start, I think I need to go up here in this water and make it lay back. But I won't pay a lot of attention to this area. All of it's gonna be here, so this is not really important, except for, the value. But the exactness, not so much. Now with that underpainting pushed back in there, I can go on top of it. It used to be, right, Caroline?
What?
It used to be that we had to go dark and then light on top of it. Pastels have changed so much over the years, you don't have to go that way. I mean, I mix them up all the time. So it's not such a bad thing anymore.
Used to be, I would never rub my pastels,
Exactly.
you know, and this is totally
That's before sanded paper.
Right.
Okay, that's what made the check.
Okay, what do we need next? Something a little bit. I think I want to make this a little cleaner right in here. That has happened here, and I use it a lot as I'm painting. It's an accident, I don't intend it, but this green that I was just putting on, and then the underpainting is this blue. Can y'all see that or not? Then that blue becomes a little guideline for me, because right now, on the reference photo down in here in green, there's some foam that has come back up into here, but it's in shadow. So it's very dark. There's not a lot of value change in it, but it's visible. And so that blue of the underpainting actually created that. And that's by just watching your strokes. What did you leave? What did you cover up? And if you see it, you might decide to just leave it and let it work to your advantage. This is still a good value, I think, as I'm transitioning over here. Sometimes it's a very heavy push-in stroke. Other times it's a floater. And because just dragging that pastel across the paper made these little marks. Probably, if I don't forget about them and I leave them there, then they'll come in handy later in the painting by showing me, by becoming some of these little marks down here. I think we need to get lighter now. For the most part, your transitions need to be just that. You don't want a sharp contrast of color or value. So you may have to take a hand, your finger, and just kind of blend those colors together so that it just looks smoother. That's not it yet, but that's a good start. Let's see what this one does over here. I imagine a lot of you are oil painters, is that right? A lot of oil painters. So when you can mix the exact color that you're looking for, pretty much. Pastels, you can't do it, you're limited to what's there. Although, you can take, if you put one layer on top of the other layer, you're gonna come up with a different color. So you can do a lot of it that way, but there is never the right color in my palette for the first one I'm looking for. Like this one, that's not that color. But it doesn't really matter. You'll either say, okay, I like that color, I can use it. And then you'll go over it with something else, and it becomes its own color. The hardest one.
Were you ever an oil painter? You've always been a pastelist.
I started with pastel. Gosh, even now I think it's so beautiful. Why even try something else? Why fool with it? Especially now, we have so many options. I am a little bit more careful when I'm working at home with no timeline and no talking. That's the difference in going up and down in your stroke. On this one, I went down from light to the darker, and here I went from the dark to the light. I was like, that helps. This is a warmish, to me it looks warm. I'd like to have a gray back there, but I don't think I have it with me. Does it look okay back there?
It definitely looks warm. It looks warm.
And actually, that's probably, in this photo, that area right there is the most forward part, so it's okay if it's warm. I may have it too dark, but there's pastels that'll cover it. I like this one. Pretty good. This is a little dark. These are so soft, this Richeson. A little bit like schminky. picked this one up, I thought it was a light blue, but it's purple.
Mm.
I think it'll come out okay. Painting, I don't remember which one I was working on, and I couldn't create the texture that it needed or that I wanted there, whatever the intuition might have been. So as this is falling, the pastel, as you put it on, it falls down, it catches in here. So I just tapped my fingers into that part, and I picked up some little pastel on the tips of my fingers, and I just touched it up here, and you see that one?
Mm-hmm.
And it just created the most marvelous texture down in here. And now if I keep going over that, it blends it in a little bit more, but it I don't know, doesn't it look like, if I just, I've got some light on my hand right now, so that did that. That's okay. But if I just tap it, it softens those colors and puts them together. The thing to remember, what I just did is I went into the light and then back into the dark. So that's, I have the light on my hand, I don't want it there. So you have to remember you're going up with it. And that just takes away some of those edges and makes them more gradual like that. Right here especially needed. The brand of this pastel is Diane Townsend. They're different from any other pastel that I've used. They're very gritty, and so they go on differently. I like to use them for the accents, like this part right in here, because it puts a lot of texture in there. Just twisting your hand gave me those ripples that you might see over there. Really just neat ways of using it. A lot of sparkle.
So is that pretty hard? Because we can definitely hear it scratching when you put it on the sanded board.
Is it what?
Is it hard? I mean, you said it was gritty, but is it harder also? Because we can hear the scratchy noise.
It makes a scratchy noise because it's grit on grit, really.
Okay.
And I guess they are. I'm gonna do it right here.
So,
They're certainly not. They're considered soft pastels, but they're not soft in feel. I just have it. And it's one of the widest white of soft pastel. So if white is what you need, it's a good one to have. I'm going to go on this little line right here.
that's mine.
This is not my phone.
The other really good way of using the Diane Townsend, all of the pastels you can do this with, but Diane Townsend works really well. And it's doing little marks like that.
Oh, cool.
You're just turning. And it's like it's that leading edge of that wave. Okay, now I wanted to get, that was the fun part. You enjoy that. I wanted to get some of these little tendrils of water. This is just a dark gray pastel pencil. And if I'm laying it almost parallel to the paper rather than point. And so the whole length of that point gives me some shading. And where do you want it darker? If you want it darker, you just push a little bit harder. That's really nice. This is a neat little pattern right here. Takes you down to the bottom and back up to that swirl. It's too dark. I think there's a lot more that I would certainly do with this, but in case I run out of time, I want to show you the fun part. So I'm gonna do that now. That's not too bad. I think, in my mind, there's a difference between blending and tapping. Tapping I do. And in this case, if you've got a hard pastel, well, I say that, but anyway. Can you see it?
Uh-huh.
You see it
Wow.
falling down?
Oh, that is so
Isn't that neat? And you put it, then if there are places, like I did this one very softly scraping across. And let your hand go where you want the things to
I
fall.
wondered how you did that.
And then if there are places, these are very fine particles. If there are places where you want thicker ones, heavier ones, then I just turn it a little bit and I kind of more like grate it off. See that fell down there bigger? It's almost like you're cutting them off instead of, and they fell up there, that's okay.
It's like using your paintbrush to speckle
So
your
that way
paper.
that gives you big ones and little ones,
Yes.
which would normally happen anyway, naturally happen. This photo reference doesn't have a lot of this, but that doesn't mean it can't be, right?
I love it.
Ooh. So how do you get it to stay on now?
I'll show you in just
Okay.
a second.
Okay.
That is magic. And down here, I like to have it a little bit thicker. So I'll just go closer and just kind of build it up.
Now it looks like a wave coming over.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
Oh, that is.
That's not that Diane Townsend. Is that white, the Diane Townsend white? No,
No, these are just,
plain old.
yeah, just plain. And I think you can use, these are hard ones, like from Rembrandt's probably. But I think you can use almost any of the other brands. It's just, I don't like to waste my soft ones.
That's right.
Right.
And I hardly ever use Rembrandt's now. You can take a blue and add a little bit more dimension to
Can you
it.
see?
And can you see that difference in the color?
Oh, wow.
And a lighter, any
But
color that you,
that's
any color,
Fun.
any color that you think might be real.
Yeah.
If you find that you don't like some of them, like if it looks like it's too much of a pattern rather than being a natural spray, like right here I've got a lot of heaviness right in that spot. You can take the blade and lay it parallel, very close to the paper so you're not cutting it, and just scrape it away. Doesn't hurt it at all. Or if you've got that big one up there, just flick it off. I might like some big ones down there. What do you think?
Sure.
Big ones?
Why not? Anything that's fun. Ooh.
Okay, how do you get it to stay?
Nice pattern.
Let me go right behind you. Back to my window foam. This is glassine paper.
It's not wax paper. Not wax paper.
It's a little bit like wax paper, but it doesn't have that waxy surface to it. It's called glassine. Kind of lay it on top.
Just push it in.
Furnish it in. Which, you know, we were always told, well, like if you blend, you have squished pastel down into it and you've lost that prism-like effect of it. So I never do that, but for this one purpose, I use this, and it doesn't seem to dull it down too much. So, okay, I'm gonna put that here. And then when I finish, I just like that.
And it stays.
That's how much
Not
fell
much
off.
came.
Wow.
There it is.
That is great.
And you have waves in a lake, so.
In Lake Michigan, you have a lot of waves. It's really.
This is something I don't have a really good spot to show you. You almost have to find it on. But anyway, when you're moving that pastel across there, it doesn't. If you're not pushing down hard, it doesn't go on like a solid sheet. There are spaces in between it. If you can find those spaces on there and take another color and then just color in between them, you have created texture. You've created lines. You must have done it with oil.
Is it kind of like negative painting, or?
It would be.
Yeah.
They aren't really good enough to demo, so I'm not going to go into that. There's some up in here. But anyway, that is a neat thing. If make yourself
Yeah,
aware of what
exactly.
your medium is doing.
Mhm.
The other thing, before I do those things in the bag, who wanted that? Yeah. These are my two favorite brushes. I got them from Hobby Lobby. They're called Master's Touch. They're one of the cheap ones. A little fan brush that's got teeth in it, and a round one that's got teeth in it. And I use it a lot to do subtractive painting. And to create texture. Like if I take this one, and I very lightly go into here. Can you see that it created those?
Yeah.
That's because there's a color underneath what I'm taking off. And it allows that other color to come in, and it creates a look of texture without having to paint it. There's a dark down there, then in red, that's great. So I love using those. This one is more, it's not as subtle as that one, but you can create lines. Where's the line? Right here. Now right where I'm doing is I'm taking enough off that there's light underneath the dark, and that's what's showing up. Uart pastel has a texture unlike any other pastel that I've tried, and I love them for my portraits. But I have this set, and so I'm going to just start right over in here, this little V section. The best set, if you don't have any pastels and you want to get started, the best set is the Nomad.
Okay.
Yeah, you can paint almost anything with that. Maybe not all these blues, but the flat surface right here, just touching it and dragging, and that's as simple as it got. Because, as I said, I don't like doing that, and I know they're very important because there's that tells you where the sun is and that it's coming on down this way. So they're important, and I have to learn how to do that. And then if you want to just create more, like this is the little ripple back there in the water. So it's got more body to it, more volume. So just come on down with it. I let that line go upward. I want it to come down, so I just tapped it off. You can also take this square end that's on and tap. Other places where you need a little bit of sparkle, push it in. Come out in here you've got just a little single stroke. Just do a little tap. You don't like it? Or it needs to be more subtle, just tap it. You can go back to that Diane Townsend, which is so easy, and do some of those. You see that one? And that becomes the very top of the wave. And this is the Diane Townsend one. See, it works differently from that one. It looks about the same, doesn't it?
Carolyn, do you ever do a wet underpainting with the seascapes? Man.
Yes and no, I have certainly done them in the past. I found, you know that the Uart paper, it will hardly ever come out flat. It's always got a little curl to it. So you almost have to mount it. And so even with the ones that I have mounted in different, there are several different ways you can mount it, and I've tried half a dozen of them. I was having some problems with the separation of the paper, the Uart paper, from the background, from the foam core or whatever I put it on. So when I put that wet underpainting on there with alcohol, I was having some areas that separated, and you know, you've got a big thing, a portrait, and you can't work past it. What are you going to do? So I eventually went to the dry, and I don't have that.
And it
problem.
works.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so translucent, looking at that wave,
It is.
it's just remarkable.
And there's
To apply it wet.
remember when you've got plain paper there and you put some pastel on it, and usually some of the harder pastels, Rembrandt or new pastels, and then you dip a brush into alcohol or water or terpenoid and brush in it, and you can keep your brush fairly wet it, but then keep get it fairly dry, and then just rub it in. Or you can keep it, you let your brush be fairly wet, and you make all these wonderful drips, which is, I miss, because I took advantage of them in my paintings. Because if you want those drips and runs to be there, then you start at the bottom, and then as you're working up, the wet solution that's dissolved the pastels then run down, and it would be wonderful to create some of these water scenes.
That's what I was wondering, if you ever tried that.
But I
Drips
just
are
got,
scary to me. Drips are scary to me, cause you never know if they're gonna be in the right place, or, you know.
but here where I was talking, you can take that pastel and go, called it negative space, and go in between it. You can do the same thing with those drips and runs, leave that drip on there
Go
visible
around it.
and go in between it, yeah. So I don't know why my paper was separating. I've used the 3M repositional, and I've used the graphics, which are both films that you adhere the two surfaces together. I've even used that spray adhesive.
I think the 3M works the best, cause you can
Yeah,
really roll your paper down on it.
that's what
I
I
had
use.
more trouble with that one than anything.
Really?
I really did. And I can't decide why, is it the humidity in our part of the country? Is that what's
Might
doing it?
be.
I don't know.
But you're saying you didn't buy that paper on the foam core, you had to put this paper on this piece of foam core.
What did you use for
Right.
this?
For this one, I don't remember. But
Okay,
another thing that I've done, I've tried is, like at Hobby Lobby, you can get them, it's, crescent mount, I think,
yeah.
which it has an adhesive on it. It's foam core with an adhesive, and then you just peel that top layer off and
Yeah.
put it on.
Does that work pretty good?
It works pretty good, yeah.
I've
I mean-
got
Crescent.
Crescent is a paper.
So crescent board, people
Crescent
make
board.
it.
Crescent mount,
People make it.
I would think, I don't know.
It's not, I don't think it's archival, you know,
Alright,
but it's a really good. I'm not gonna do much for that, okay. I'm not gonna do here.
You can buy the Uart already mounted,
right, that's what I was
but I
asking.
found it has a texture on it. Don't you think it has a texture once you buy it mounted?
I
I
haven't
mean, it has
mounted,
like a grid or something.
I haven't bought any of the mounted UART. However, no matter which mounting, procedure that I've used, it changes the texture of the UART.
Yes.
I notice you have a wonderful habit of after you use your pastel, you immediately wipe it on your rag and clean it, So is that just, any special type of rag? Or you just,
No, it's a microfiber.
so you just throw it in the wash?
Yeah. Mhm. I have
So-
different kinds of so that's all.
Wonderful habit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get into that habit.
But if I have an area that I don't like, and then you can just take your foam brush and go like that, and it comes
Yeah, I was
off.
gonna ask you if there's a way to erase, and that's basically how you erase, okay.
This is primary it, or even, these brushes.
Do you apply a fixative at the end?
Hmm?
Do you apply a fixative at the end so that that things stay?
I don't.
Okay,
No.
yeah, you don't do that.
The final layer, I wouldn't.
You can drag some of that color down in here, so your line is not so
Mhm.
so sharp, or soften that edge a little bit. I didn't do a good demo up here, I'm sorry.
No, I thought it was
We
excellent,
got the idea.
Yeah,
excellent.
That's about it.
You can almost feel that wave.
Hmm?